Probably one of the best events I think this club runs, but I'm prejudiced. Okay. So I want to thank the club. This is the 6th annual Veterans Honor Flight that we have this year, and each year it gets better, and each year we have a tremendous cast of veterans that we get to acknowledge and recognize and take to DC. The trip is pretty much the same, and so each year I try to find something that I can highlight in the trip that will make this year's presentation a little bit more interesting than last year's presentation, because a lot of the places we go to, you're going to see the same thing. But each year, each trip is different, and it really makes it a lot of fun to work with these veterans and to hear their stories. And I'm only going to get to touch on things we did. The best part of it all is the stories. And you won't get to hear a lot of those stories. I'll try to weave them in if I can, but it's really fun.
There you go.
We had 6 veterans that traveled with us this year. We have 4 here today, and I'm really privileged to be able to introduce them. Major Ellis Fullweiler, United States Army Air Corps. And B-24 crew member. If you hadn't noticed, he's got the sweatshirt. But this aviation machinist mate 3rd class, Fred Berry, right here. Bob, sorry. So Bob was my rambler on this trip. Bob had never met anybody that he didn't like. He never met an enemy. And every time I had to get ready to move the group from one monument to the next, it was, okay guys, stay here, I gotta go find Bob. He was great. We had this year a first for the club. We had 3 generations of members of the military that traveled with us. Lieutenant Colonel Fred Colwell, United States Army, his son, Lieutenant Colonel Richard Colwell, is here today, along with his wife Karen. And their son, Master Sergeant Kevin Colwell, was also a member of the team, the group that went out today. First Lieutenant Fred Taylor, here. It was a tremendous group, and we had a good day. It was a beautiful day when we went. And whoops, let me go this way. It started again, as all military operations do, at 0 dark 30 at Don Scott Air Force patch or base patch. And we had the crew showed up. We had our aircraft assignments, and by golly, even Elizabeth showed up to wish her grandpa off at 6:30 in the morning. So what a great thing happened. En route, in case you never had a chance to fly a small airplane, a little cramped, as you can see, but GIs are used to that, so we never had spacious accommodations when we were flying around in the military, and this is much the same. Everybody got a use of a headset so you could listen to air traffic control and play like you were back on active duty and those kinds of things. It was a lot of fun. We land at Manassas, Virginia, because it's outside of DC, and then we drive from Manassas into Washington. It's about an hour drive. We rent vans there and put the entire crew in, and it's about 50 minutes to get from Manassas Airport into town. And then we start the tour. And what I've shown you here is kind of where all of the monuments are. If you've never been in Washington, this is the mall area where you have the Lincoln Memorial, the Capitol down here, and in between are a lot of national buildings and so forth. But the military memorials are generally down here in this area close to the Lincoln Memorial on the mall. But we travel from the World War II Memorial through the Korean to the Vietnam. We go over to Fort Myer, have lunch, and then we go to the Air Force Memorial, to the Pentagon, Arlington Cemetery, and over to Iwo Jima. Now on that map it looks close. It's not that close. And of course you got Washington traffic you have to play in here, but it's a very ambitious morning and day to get through all the memorials and give the veterans an opportunity to get to visit the various aspects of the memorials and places they've been, things they've done, and see all that. So, first place we stop is on the mall area, where we have 3 of the memorials. If you're not familiar with the mall, the World War II memorial is here, and it's one of the more recent on the mall memorials. The Korean War memorial down by the Lincoln Memorial, and the Vietnam Memorial is just over here. It looks close, but it's about a half a mile, a little bit longer in that area. We started the World War II Memorial. If you haven't had a chance to visit, I would encourage you, if you have some time to get to DC, to do that, because it's a unique memorial in that it's one of the areas where we have 2 theaters of operation that the military in the United States was involved in, and this memorial encompasses both of those theaters. We have an Atlantic theater and a Pacific theater, where they have specific plaques and things of that nature that talk about the campaigns the military had. There are a series of pillars, each dedicated to one of the states. So all 50 states have a pillar there. You'll see Ohio's a little bit. There's the Price of Freedom wall, which basically encapsulates, and I'll have a couple slides later to show you the cost of these types of activities in human lives. Fountains and brass relief along here, which show various scenes of activity that occurred during the campaigns, whether they be Atlantic or Pacific. And it gives you an idea of some of the environments in which the military forces participate. Kilroy is there. If you never had, I showed you last year, Kilroy's there, and you'll see as we go through, he's still there. So our first stop, we started at the Cornerstone, and then these are the brass reliefs that are along the walkway entering into depicting. This is a group of paratroopers getting ready to depart the aircraft. Here you have a bunch of soldiers getting ready to pack up and head out. So it gives you different aspects of the different missions and everything that supported the theater of operations all along the wall. And then of course there are lots of engravings with famous quotes from a lot of military and civilian dignitaries, president and so forth, as part of the memorial. There are fountains and water flowing throughout that, and I didn't know, I said, well, it's pretty, but there really is a purpose behind the fountains. And the purpose behind the fountains is to have a continuous flow of water representing the gratitude, the continuous gratitude that the nation has to those who participated in those campaigns. So you'll see, and if you ever wondered why you see a lot of fountains and a lot of memorials and things like that, that's one of the reasons. There's a waterfall here with cascading right in front of the Price of Freedom wall. The Price of Freedom wall is a unique depiction of what the cost of the World War II was. What you see here is that it's a wall of stars, each star representing 100 casualties. The total cost of the war, you see there in this wall, 4,950 stars. So day or night, well, let me think, I won't do that yet. Day or night, you can see the cost of those, the contributions of those who gave their lives in support of those theaters of operation. Of course, we did our tradition. When I say each state has a pillar, in front of it, we do our traditional OHIO. Except we had 6 guys there this year, so it was OOHIOO this year. Except there's one person missing. Guess who that person is? Mr. Bob again. Come to find out, he found a nice little female ranger, and she was showing him everything around the park. He forgot about the rest of us. And Kilroy is still there. You know, the real secret to Kilroy is you have to know where it is in the World War II Memorial. So I'm not going to tell you. So when you get to Washington, your task, when you get there to the World War II Memorial, find Kilroy. When we completed our stay in World War II, we went from there down to the Korean War Memorial. It was our next stop, and this is where we walked. We actually drove down because that's easier on our veterans when we do that. The Korean War Memorial, this is an aerial shot. It has 3 phases. It's got the plaza, the wall, and the field of the soldiers representing the Korean theater of operation. We were very pleased this year to have been, for the first time, had a chance to meet retired Air Force Colonel Vic Tambone, BIL. He's the brother-in-law of Rotarian Dwight Seeley. And Vic had the distinction of being a member of the committee that participated in the design and the review and the approval of the Korean War Memorial. So I had hoped to have him come in and give us a little bit more extended discussion and what behind the scenes kind of talk about how these memorials come about and what it takes in order to design and get approved and those kinds of things. He promised me he'd try to get here. He couldn't make it this year, so I've got Dwight leaning on him to come next year, and we'll have a thing there. But if you see, when you get in here, it was my impression, in talking to a lot of other folks, that these were representative of a squad in Korea. In truth, what this is this entire field, there's 19 soldiers in this field, and they represent all the nationalities and that took place as far as the U.S. combined forces in the Korean conflict. So if you look closely at the facial features of a lot of these statues, you can see the distinction that they made as they built these statues. You'll go into that more, hopefully next year. Well, what you saw was what's there. When you talk to Korean veterans, this is what they tell you what the real Korea looked like. And trust me, it was very, very harsh, and it was a tough theater of operation. Here we have our one of our several group pictures of the Colwell generation at the memorial. We went from Korea over to the Vietnam Memorial. The unique aspect about this part of the trip is that to get from the Korean War Memorial to the Vietnam Memorial, guess where you have to transit? It's probably one of the most scenic views that you're going to have an operation to get and participate in when you go to D.C. This is to the east. This is the view to the east as you're walking across that plaza. That's the view to the west. So as part of looking at our memorials, we also get to see the grandeur of the nation's capital and the memorials that are there as part of that, not just to the military, but to all of our other national treasures. The next stop was the Vietnam Memorial. As I'm going through all the photos and everything, I realized that we probably got so involved in going down and talking about the memorial, none of us took a picture of the group at the memorial. So what you see is what's there. And I unfortunately don't have our vets in this one picture, but the wall with the names inscribed of those that are KIA, MIA in Vietnam. This was the original part of the memorial, and most of the veterans felt it was nice, but it was missing something. You couldn't identify with the people whose names are on the wall. They came up with this statue here, which is the statue of 3 soldiers returning from a mission in Vietnam. And for those of us who had the opportunity to be in Vietnam during the Vietnam conflict, that's what you saw. There was no parades. There was no single file marching. You just saw guys coming back, and you knew they had been through hell. And this statue is probably an outstanding replica. And when I saw that first time, I said to myself, wow, that's it. That's what's missing. And then it was also pointed out, no, it's not. There's still something. There are a lot of other folks that came and helped. And that was a lot of the nurses in the medical corps that were key to helping a lot of the Vietnam folks survive the conditions they lived in and the wounds and everything they had. And so they dedicated this statue here. And they are all within walking distance of the memorial, the wall there at the Vietnam Memorial. From there, we went over to Fort Myer, and I don't know if you're familiar with Fort Myer, but Fort Myer itself is a U.S. Army post that surrounds and adjacent to the Arlington National Cemetery. It is also the home of the U.S. 3rd Infantry Regiment, which is traditionally known as the Old Guard. And the Old Guard is the oldest active duty infantry unit in the Army, having served since 1784. It has an interesting history and even a modern mission today, and I'm going to cover more of that here. Since World War II, it has served as the official Army Honor Guard for the President and escort the President of the United States. 3rd Infantry soldiers are responsible for ceremonies, whether they be official, national, international, recognizing international visitors to the United States, national holidays, or so forth. They have both a traditional garb and the old Continental Army uniform that they use in certain ceremonies. In addition, they provide the caisson, escorts, and honor guard for funerals at Arlington Cemetery. Finally, they're also the source of the guards at the Tomb of the Unknowns, and I'll cover some more on that a little bit as we get to that point. But we had lunch at the Spates Community Center there on Fort Myer, so they get to see some of the things that are ongoing in today's military system, compared stories. This is where the stories take place, right here, when we have lunch, and it's a great time. We went from lunch over to the Air Force Memorial, and the unique thing about the Air Force Memorial is you can see it from just about any place in town. And the reason for it are these tall, they're over 300 feet tall, contrail columns. And if you want to know where the contrails came from, if you're familiar with the Air Force aerial demonstration team, the Thunderbirds, the very last maneuver they perform when they can do their high show, which is cloudless days, minimal clouds, is a maneuver called the bomb burst, where they go up and then on one count go north, south, east, and west. And that's where the contrails comes in, and that's what they captured in the Air Force Memorial. On the Air Force Memorial itself, you have the contrails themselves that go up. If you've been to the St. Louis Arch, if you can see the St. Louis Arch, except the same thing, only it's the contrails. There's a plaza on it which has the honor guard, and in the background the heritage wall with a lot of famous quotes and statements by national, particularly Air Force leaders, Hap Arnold, Billy Mitchell, those types of individuals. We have the etched glass depiction of the Missing Man Formation. As you know, in traditional Air Force history, that they'll have the Missing Man flyover at a pilot's funeral. And normally it's a 4-ship formation. In the Missing Man Formation, what's missing? We have our traditional picture we take every year because we like to have them stand here. This is at the edge of the memorial where you have the Capitol in the background. You can see everything in D.C. from this one vantage point. You can see over the National Cathedral, to the Capitol, to the mall area, to the Pentagon, to Arlington Cemetery. It's all right there because of the prominent location of the Air Force Memorial. It is truly picturesque. From there we went to the Pentagon Memorial, which is one of the most recent memorials in the D.C. area. At the Pentagon, the memorial is dedicated to the 184 victims from both the airplane and internal to the Pentagon building that were there at the time of the attack. When was the attack? September 12th, 2001, 1737.22 Zulu. Zulu is Greenwich Mean Time. For Washington, D.C., you subtract 6 hours, so it's 11:37:22 on September 12th was when the airplane flew into the Pentagon.
No, 11th.
I'm sorry, September 11th. Should be. The aerial shot, this is an aerial shot that was taken shortly after the Pentagon, after the fires were actually put out and some of the damage was the immediate damage. The most dangerous parts of the thing were removed, but that's a ground level view of that same area where the airplane went in. And then reconstruction, so how far back into the building they had to go to put it back into place. And of course, oops, there it is today. There's the building today. And this lighter area right here is the area that was repaired as a result of the crash. When I talk about the Air Force Memorial being visible, here we are down on the grounds during construction. You can see in the background. This is what it looks like in the finished form. And what you see here are, for each of those 184 victims of the Pentagon attack, there is a bench dedicated in their memory. The bench has their name on the sky. The bench itself, there's flowing water. Again, I mentioned earlier, water flowing, continuous memory. There's water flowing under each bench. And the benches are aligned according to birth date. Not according to alphabetical order or anything else like that, but they have from the oldest individual in the building that was a casualty that day to the very youngest. And there was a young, I think it was a 13-month-old child that was visiting the Pentagon that day that was a casualty of the attack. From there we go over to Arlington National Cemetery. If you've never been to Arlington Cemetery, it is huge. But the key features are you have the entryway here with the visitor center, Kennedy gravesite, and the Tomb of the Unknown, the Custis Lee Mansion that sits up here. It's a vast thing. You have to see it to appreciate it. But here at the entranceway, several years ago, they established the Military Women in Service Museum. So that's the location in D.C. So if you get to Arlington Cemetery, please don't think you just only can get to see the thing, because there's some interesting history about the role of women in the military and the different roles and missions and things they perform. So it's very nice. The Kennedy gravesite is a stop on the tramway tour up to the Tomb of the Unknowns. And the Custis Lee Mansion sits here at the top, which was early. There's a whole history on that one, so I'm going to save that for a future presentation. How am I doing time? Getting close. Tomb of the Unknowns is the major point of our visit here. It consists of the tomb contains the remains of American servicemen from World War I, World War II, and Korea. There was a Vietnam veteran, or Vietnam soldier, unknown, that was buried. However, through the actions of a group of folks that had relatives and so forth involved, they were able to identify the approximate site where the remains came from and tie that to all the missions, and eventually did identify a name. They exhumed the casket out of the Tomb of the Unknowns for the Vietnam, and sure enough, that's exactly who it was. So that they were able to return it to the family, and the crypt is now empty. The group was able to observe the changing of the guard, and at Guard Mount, if you had never had the experience to go and see this, I highly encourage you when you're in D.C., take the time and make the effort to go see this ceremony. Each oncoming sentry is given a thorough and read white glove, physically, white glove inspection of both his uniform and his rifle prior to and after his tour of duty at the tomb. The third guard is again the source of the volunteers for the Tomb of the Unknown, and they are volunteers. To get into the third guard you have to meet a special selection board by the United States Army. To get into the tomb, to get an assignment as the honor guard, you have to meet yet another selection board to have the opportunity to serve at the tomb. They have to set high, rigid, strict standards. The candidates must be between 5'10" and 6'2". Their waist size cannot exceed 30 inches. Anybody qualify? Except for Rita. You look good for you. Point being that is, you'll see when you see them in uniform, you see the narrow waist. There's the 30-inch restriction right there.
After what happened in Canada, how are we protecting the guard, you know?
There's been no change, to the best of my knowledge, in the way we do business.
Do they check you when you come in or anything?
No.
He does have a load.
No, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't. The weapon is not loaded. The tour duty of the guard is for 2 years, and in order for them to earn the Tomb Guard identification badge, uniqueness of that, it is the second least awarded medal and badge in the United States military. The first one being the astronaut badge. During their tour of duty, both prior to and after, the Tomb Guard is elected the Select Corps, but there is no truth to the rumor that they cannot smoke, drink, or curse for a lifetime once they're selected. That is a rumor that floats around on the internet. They're GIs, for crying out loud. So, there's just no way it's going to happen. Some interesting facts surrounding the tour of duty of the Guard. The tour is for each Guard is 30 minutes in the summer, 1 hour in the winter. The Guard takes 21 steps along the rubber mat that's provided for his tour, stops, faces the tomb, pauses for 21 seconds, turns, takes 21 steps to the opposite end, stops, pauses, faces the tomb for 21 seconds, and continues that routine for the entire length of his tour. Why 21? That's your question, correct? As you recall, probably the greatest military honor that can be provided to any either dignitary, member of the military, whatever, is a 21-gun salute. So everything is representative of the highest honor they can provide to those interred here. And it is representative of a day-to-day commitment to their honor. Guards will always carry their weapon on the shoulder opposite of the tomb. So each time they turn, they will transfer the gun to the shoulder outside the tomb in honor and respect. The weapon will never be pointed at the tomb. The Guards' uniforms contain no rank, in order that they not outrank those that may be interred. Guards are on duty 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, rain, shine, snow, sleet, hail, no matter what. They are a dedicated and committed group of individuals, highly admired and respected for their commitment to that duty. On this trip, we were able to observe students from Monroe County, Virginia, lay a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown. This is a very common event that they have at the tomb, generally during the weekends. But like the Wall of Stars at the World War II Memorial, when you see the numbers of crosses and they're just row after row after row, it brings back to you freedom isn't free. This is a very common occurrence at Arlington Cemetery. And it's tough when you see it, trust me. That was it. That was our last stop. So we went from there back to the airport, back to Manassas. But on behalf of the club, to the veterans, thank you very much. We appreciate you and your service. To your dad, Britt, we thank you. To you personally, thank you very much. To your son, Kevin, again, we appreciate the family's commitment to Major Fullwater. Thank you, sir. Great job. Fred, thank you, sir. Great job. We also, where's Bob? I finally got him rounded up. He's here, so that's great.
You didn't leave me there.
Thank you. We had Dr. Robert Benas, Bob Benas, we call him Rocket Bob in the flying game, but he's here. This is his 4th year that he's flown our veterans out to D.C. This year we were joined by Rob Emily and his aircraft, and they donate their time and their aircraft to us to do this, so I was hoping they could make it, but they can't make it today, unfortunately. But special thanks to the club again for your support of this project, and that's it.